Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we are talking about the top 3 healthy fats and the fats that we should never eat. You know, in our society, we're told that fat is bad for you, but actually, science is showing that fat is extremely healthy and necessary, but we got to get the right type of fat. I'm going to go through that in detail in today's presentation. And so, if you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine, speak all around the country on a number of different health topics, but really have a niche in the ketogenic diet and lifestyle. And this is my beautiful family, my wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua there. And so as we look at really how our body works and how we heal, we know we've got all of these different cells, right? And when we're looking at healing, we've got to go down to the cellular level. Every organ system of our body is made up of cells. And if the cells aren't functioning well, then those organs are going to get sick and dying. Now, on the outside surface of every cell is what we call the cell membrane. And the membrane is made up of fatty acids. And when the membrane is healthy, it allows nutrients like, for example, glucose or ketones or different things like that to seep in. And now the cell is able to make the energy it needs in the mitochondria, and then it's able to produce the enzymes it needs to strip wastes out and carry wastes out. When the cell is damaged and inflamed, when we've got chronic inflammation, you can see the cell membrane becomes really rigid and hard. We're not able to get the same level of hormone receptor activity. For example, insulin receptor helps bring glucose to the cell. So when there's inflammation along the cell membrane, we get insulin resistance, where now we're not able to get the glucose in like we need to. And now the mitochondria and the cells are not able to produce the energy that they need to. There's going to be more oxidation, reactive oxygen species, and inflammation in general inside of the cell. And then we're not going to be able to get the waste out. So we're going to end up with really a toxic bioaccumulation within the cell. And it's a vicious cycle, which basically a vicious cycle means kind of like a snowball, right? Or turning into an avalanche. So basically we start out with a snowball, but over time it picks up momentum. So this is the kind of cycle when we've got unhealthy cell membranes due to inflammation, chronic inflammation in the body, that now it just starts to snowball because the cells aren't getting the energy they need. They're not able to produce detoxifying enzymes the way that they need to. They're not able to get waste out. And so it just becomes this, in a sense, this just really toxic, damaged cell. And the problem is those cells start to replicate and they start to make new cells that are sick and damaged. So we want a lot more of these normal, healthy cells than sick cells. And the reality is our body is constantly healing. We just have to remove the interference and allow the body to rebuild new healthy cells on a daily and regular basis. And then our organ systems are going to start to function really well over time. And so we look at that cell membrane again. The outer portion of every cell membrane are these fatty acids. And so with the fatty acids, we have got saturated fats, which are kind of like strong pillars. And so we need those strong pillars. They're real stable, and they really hold up the cell membrane, give it greater strength and stability. Now, polyunsaturated fats like omega-3s, for example, are necessary for the fluidity of the cell membrane. So we need that so we can get the proper receptor function, so we can secrete and respond to neurotransmitters and hormones appropriately. So we need those. The problem is when we get too much omega-6 fats, not enough omega-3s, okay, now we end up with a lot of different issues, a lot of different problems, because omega-6 fats provoke more inflammation in the body. They basically drive up prostaglandins, which are cellular communication proteins, and these prostaglandins end up contributing to inflammation. They send out a signal for inflammation. So what we got to really watch out for are high omega-6 fats, right? We want high omega-3s, low omega-6. We also need saturated fats, monounsaturated fats. We need a lot of antioxidants, fat-soluble antioxidants as well. Things like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K. Those are our fat-soluble antioxidants that are so important. And so we need to make sure we're getting those in from our diet to have a healthy cell. So Big key, cut down on omega-6. What's really high in omega-6? It's going to be particularly grains, so breads, rice, corn. And so when you look at corn, for example, we're using that everywhere. We've got corn oil, soybean oil, so a lot of legumes like soybean. And we see soybean oil everywhere. Soybean oil is really high in omega-6. Cottonseed oil, peanut oil is really high in omega-6 fats. So we want to avoid that. Grain-fed animal products. So when the animals eat grains, they bioaccumulate this omega-6. Their omega-3 levels go down. And now we're consuming that. So we're going to get a lot of omega-6, very low levels of omega-3. Again, that's going to cause a lot of inflammation in the body. And you can see the average individual out there has a 1 to 20 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. We should have a 1 to 2 ratio. So where are we going to get our healthy omega-3s? Wild-caught fish, sardines, wild-caught salmon are great. Omega-3 eggs, particularly pasture-raised. That's what I look for. I don't actually look for eggs that say omega-3 on them. I'm looking for pasture-raised because I know if the chickens are raised on fresh pasture, they're going to eat a lot of grass. They're going to eat a lot of insects that are rich in omega-3s, and then therefore their eggs and their egg yolk is going to have a lot of omega-3 fats in it. It's going to be really good. We can also get it from some plant sources like flaxseed oils, walnuts. However, it's really not the best source. I'm more in favor of the animal sources because that's where we get the really long chain omega-3s, particularly EPA and DHA, which are very long chain omega-3s as opposed to alpha linoleic acid, which is what we find in flaxseed oil and walnuts, 18 carbon chain omega-3, as opposed to the EPA and DHA, which are 22 and 24 carbon chain omega-3s. And so it takes a lot of liver enzymes in order to take the 18 carbon chain and turn it into the 22 and 24 carbon omega-3 fats that we really use for our brain and our body. Most people are not able to make that conversion well. So although flax seeds and flaxseed oil, walnuts can be a part of a healthy diet, I don't recommend that as our main source of omega-3s. Now, if you're a vegetarian or vegan, I'm a huge fan of doing algae. So like spirulina, chlorella. You can also get algae oils to get those omega-3s. That would be a lot better source if you're a vegan. If you're vegetarian, then you could also do. You may be allowed to. You may give yourself permission to do omega-3 eggs, and that would be awesome. Grass-fed, pasture-raised omega-3 eggs, or grass-fed butter as well. So when cows eat grass, grass has a lot of omega-3s. Now the grass has small chain omega-3s, the 18 carbon chain omega-3s. But the cows are very good at converting that into the long chain EPA and DHA that they need. And so in their meat, their dairy, there's a lot of these long chain omega-3s that are so good for our bodies. So I'm a huge fan of doing those. And really, I mean, in general, our healing diet approach really plays a role with getting that right omega-6 to 3 balance. Number one, get rid of the sugars and grains. Get rid of these bad fats I'm going to go through in detail. Really add in more of the good fats, some of the things we've already talked about. And then change the meat that we eat. Get rid of the grain-fed and switch over to the pasture-raised, organic, grass-fed. If you do that, you're going to see big changes in your health. You're going to see big changes in the way that your cells respond to hormones, neurotransmitters. That's going to help your mood, your energy levels. It's going to give you more stability, energy stability, mood stability. It's going to help you lose weight, reduce pain, right? And really get all of those benefits from making these changes. So good fat. Grass-fed butter, tallow, which is a beef fat. Again, you want that from grass-fed animal sources. Grass-fed ghee. Ghee is a clarified butter. So butter has really trace amounts of casein and whey, which are the proteins that are in dairy, and then also the sugar called lactose. It's very, very trace amounts, very low amounts. Okay. Ghee is completely free of those things. So some people have an allergy to casein, whey, or to lactose. And those individuals, I recommend they do ghee as opposed to butter. Most people tolerate grass-fed butter really well, but again, some people don't. So then going with ghee would be great. Palm oil, palm oil has gotten a bad rap. Same thing with coconut oil. These things have gotten a bad rap because they're saturated fats. But believe it or not, saturated fats are actually our most stable fat because saturated fats don't have double bonds. They can't be, in a sense, they're not denatured. They're remarkably stable against oxidation. Whereas monounsaturated fats, which are things we find in like avocados and olives, as well as, those are really good sources of monounsaturated fats. Even though they're good, they still have one double bond. Polyunsaturated fats, where we've got multiple double bonds, are very, very fragile. And that's why, like, for example, when you get fish oil or a flaxseed oil or a krill oil, it should always be in a really dark, either a dark capsule, real dark capsule, or a really dark bottle if you're getting the oil variety, because that's going to protect it against UV light. UV light will oxidize those fats. And again, they're very fragile. You should never, ever, ever cook with fish oil or heat it in any way. In fact, when you open it, you should put it in the refrigerator if it's an oil form. If it's capsule, it's going to be a little bit more shelf stable, but always keep it in a cool, dark area. Be sure to use it. If you open a bottle of fish oil capsules, you want to use that really within 3 months for sure once it's open. Okay, you want to make sure you preserve it as well as possible. And it should always have some sort of antioxidant like rosemary extract or astaxanthin or something like that. So vitamin E, some sort of a fat-soluble antioxidant to help protect against oxidation of those long chain fatty acids. So always look out for that. And really, avocado oil and olive oil, those should also be in very dark containers and keep them in a cool, dark area, such as your pantry. You don't have to refrigerate those, but you put them in your pantry is always a good idea. Cool, dark area, keep it out of light exposure because, again, that will damage those fats. So important. Whereas coconut oil, palm oil, not as important from that perspective to keep them out of light. It's still recommended, but not quite as important with that because they're more stable. Now, the bad fats we definitely want to avoid. You can see all those vegetable oils. We should never be consuming these. Like, stay away from all of these: margarine, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, corn oil, sunflower, soybean. Where do we find these? We find these in processed foods as well as condiments. So watch out when you're looking at salad dressings and different things like that. Look out for these really bad fats. Now, there is a company. It is Primal. They've got the Primal Mayo. Gosh, forgetting the name, but it's basically, it starts with Primal, and it was developed by Mark Sisson, and they've got avocado oil salad dressings, right? So they've got like a ranch dressing, they've got an Italian dressing, Greek, different things like that using avocado oil, which is much better. You can also find olive oil based dressings that are really, really good as opposed to doing these bad fats. You could also do something simple like olive oil and fresh squeezed lemon, something along those lines, or lime using citrus, getting some herbs in there, basil, oregano, thyme. Good Mediterranean herbs can be really, really helpful. So why do we find these sorts of really bad fats that cause inflammation in our body? Why do we find these in our processed foods and our condiments? Well, why? Because of the amount of production of these processed crops. You can see soybean, right? I mean, is that crazy or what, right? 9 million metric tons of soybean being produced. Just a huge amount of vegetable oil production, corn oil, canola oil. This is why you could see this in so many things, just massive production of these oils. They're really cheap. The government subsidizes, particularly soybean and corn production. And so manufacturers are getting these for little to nothing and putting them in a lot of their food products to save on cost. But again, these are really, really bad fats. So look out for those. And when we cook with them, or when they are combusted, okay, because they're exposed to heat and processing, which those oils are highly processed, they end up creating trans fats. And trans fats, we know, cause inflammation. They damage the cell membrane, causing type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, cardiovascular problems, weight loss resistance, the terrible triad of high LDL, high triglycerides, and low HDL. They damage our gut, contribute to leaky gut, and throw off our immune system, increasing our risk of cancer. So we've got to stay away from those. Where are the trans fat foods that we're finding? Well, fried foods. So if you go to a restaurant and they have something fried, chances are that's fried in some sort of toxic, like vegetable oil, like corn oil, soybean oil, something along those lines. And, it's one of those things in our society. We hear vegetable oil, we think vegetables are healthy. But again, soybeans and corn, not healthy, especially the oil portion, really not healthy. And it causes that trans fat production. So got to stay away from that. Pastas. So a lot of pastas, they have got a lot of these trans fats in there. And where do we, again, if we see soybean oils, corn oil, things like that, you got to think trans fats, but also you'll see things like hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated soybean oil. And that's when we know that's a trans fat. So stay away from that. Breads, so a lot of baked goods, breakfast pastries, they've got tons of those. Donuts are super high in trans fats. A lot of the snacks like chips, pretzels. I always thought pretzels were healthier. Nope, loaded with trans fats, loaded with these high omega-6 toxic fats. And then, of course, dessert products are loaded with these types of fats. So we got to stay away from this. These are the things that completely damage our cell membranes and cause that vicious cycle of inflammation in our body. So when you're going out to a restaurant, this is really important because a lot of restaurants, you go out there trying to make the best choices possible, and you want to make sure when you're choosing a restaurant that they have some sort of healthy meat, ideally, right? So some sort of maybe wild game like lamb or bison is a really good idea. Duck, if they have some sort of wild game like that that's not raised on a commercialized farm, then you're going to be, it's going to be a lot better, right? So chances of those animals eating a lot of corn and soy and stuff like that is much lower. So look for wild caught, pasture raised animal products, wild caught fish, ideally organic produce if possible, and low carb options. And also when you're looking at your restaurant, look to see if they serve avocados or guacamole, or if they have they take pride in their olive oil. Some restaurants take a lot of pride in their olive oil. Other restaurants, they dilute their olive oil. And so they'll say it's olive oil, but it's really only 50% olive oil. And they've got corn oil or soybean or canola oil in there as the other 50%. Yet they'll tell you it's olive oil. So you got to watch out for that. I'll ask the servers, is this real 100% olive oil? Or is there like corn or soy? Because I have a sensitivity to those and I don't want to have a health problem in the restaurant. And so when I ask them that, they'll give me a real answer, because if they don't know, they'll go to the back, because the last thing they want is a health problem in their restaurant. So it's a really good idea to do that. And so again, best fats to eat. Well, the best ones for hot uses, right? For cooking, in my opinion, coconut, palm, MCT oil, which is really good for helping your body create ketones and get keto adapted. Grass-fed butter, ghee, tallow, schmaltz was a chicken fat, lamb fat, duck fat. So if you're cooking lamb, for example, and you've got fat left over on the pan, don't get rid of that fat. You can obviously put it on the lamb, but then also hold on to that and use that for cooking other things later, right? Because it's got a lot of good, healthy, saturated fats in there that are very stable. It's good to use in hot forms. My favorite cooking oil is coconut oil. That's what I always, typically am cooking with. My wife and I, we will make some grass-fed beef bacon from time to time, or turkey bacon, and we'll reuse that to cook. And it's really, really good as well. Or in a sense, we'll use that with a combo of coconut oil, and it kind of provides that bacon-like flavor, which is awesome. Unsaturated fats, olive oil, avocado oil, we talked about that. Really good to use for cold sources. We don't want to cook with that. Also, nuts and seeds, as you can see, we wouldn't want to cook with like an almond oil or a walnut oil, like a concentrated oil like that. And even in nut butters and seed butters, I mean, you could do some baking with those, but ideally they're best to do in a more of a raw form. Well, what do we want to avoid? We definitely want to get rid of, again, margarine, hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated oils, canola oil. You can see the whole list right there. We definitely want to avoid those at all costs. And so ultimately, when we break this down, our natural sweeteners, best natural sweeteners, are going to be stevia, monk fruit, xylitol right there at the top. Okay, what's the base of a healthy healing diet nutrition plan? It's these healthy fats, doing things like avocados, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, pasture-raised eggs, extra virgin olive oil, coconut milk, coconut flakes, coconut butter, MCT oil. And there's a new product that really just came on the market, and I'm going to be talking a lot more about this on the road. It's called SCT oil, which is, it's similar to ghee, but it's really concentrated short chain triglycerides that are really, they turn into ketones quickly, really good for the gut. Butyrate, which is butyric acid, is the main fat in that. It's really, really good for the enterocytes, the intestinal cells in the colon. So really good for the gut, also turns into ketones really fast, easier on the gut than MCT oil. So really, really like that. It's a brand new product. And again, I'll be talking more about it. And you can eat great recipes like our coconut milk, vanilla coconut milk ice cream there, our chocolate coconut cream cups, which are loaded with these healthy fats. And it's going to help turn into ketones, help reduce inflammation, stabilize your blood sugar, and really help your body. And you can see, we also want to load our diet up with good antioxidants from non-starchy vegetables, herbs, low glycemic fruit like lemons, limes, berries, things like that. We use a lot of herbs, carminative herbs, things like ginger, basil, oregano, rosemary, cinnamon, turmeric, right? We want to use that in our food. It's really, really healthy for our gut, really healthy for our blood sugar. We get more antioxidants in there, so just a really great idea. A lot of clean proteins, so grass-fed beef, when we talked about all these things, lamb, bison, wild-caught fish, chicken, turkey, so good high-quality pasture-raised poultry, nuts and seeds, right? We use those more in moderation because they are higher in omega-6 fats. So I'm not a huge fan of doing a ton of almonds or almond butter or almond flour, for example. You want to use it more in moderation because that is higher in omega-6 fats. So better to do it in moderation. You have things like pumpkin seeds, which have a better omega-6 to 3 balance. So I'm a big fan of doing like sprouted pumpkin seeds. Can be a really great addition to your diet. But in general, your nuts and seeds, eat them in moderation, right? That's typically a good idea there. Don't just load up on those. Stick with those fats we have at the bottom as kind of the primary points in your diet. Fermented foods, so adding in some pickles, kimchi, things like that can be really healthy. Maybe coconut water kefir, coconut milk kefir, where it's fermented, coconut water, fermented coconut milk, pickles. Again, pickles were my family's favorite. We do pickles practically every day. My little boys love them. So good, high quality organic pickles. And again, natural sweeteners. If we're going to sweeten things like the ice cream down there at the bottom, the coconut cream cups, we're using things like stevia, monk fruit. If you can tolerate it, okay, maybe a little xylitol or erythritol. These sugar alcohols, though, I always try to be a little bit careful with those. They can cause more gastrointestinal upset, so they can definitely cause issues with your gut. So be careful with those. I really try to stick with more stevia and monk fruit as my natural sweeteners. And so if you want to go deeper on this topic, I do have an online program. It's called my Navigating the Ketogenic Diet e-course, where I really break down the best diet to follow, really how to get into ketosis. We have a meal plan, shopping guide, really everything you need to be successful in your journey to a ketogenic lifestyle. So hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of today's presentation. If you want to check out the ketogenic diet program, it's right on drjockers.com. And also we have a link underneath this video where you can check out more details about the best fats to use and the fats to avoid in our article on the topic. And guys, I will see you in a future video. God bless everybody, and we'll see you soon.